and welcome back to the next tour with
Ian?
and Andia. We are on episode 21. So this is Transition and Finding Your Career Path with Ross Dickman. And Ian will introduce our guest this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Andia mentioned, finding your career path, we're delighted to have Ross join us today. So Ross spent 12 years on active duty. He was a U.S. Army pilot. If you can see that wonderful picture behind his head, the mighty AH-64 Apache, did some great things for our nation. He separated after 12 years in May of 2016. So since then, he's done a lot of really cool things, one of which he serves as executive officer for the Simon Center for the Professional Military Ethic. But what we're really excited to talk about is his role as the Chief Executive Officer for Hire Heroes USA. And that's really what we want to get into today. So Ross, welcome. We're so glad to have you.
Thanks so much, Ian, Andia. It's great to be here. Appreciate the chance to join you.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Well, I've got to say that I've been really excited for this episode because this was one of the organizations I had not heard of before and really didn't know a lot about. And so I love finding new things to be able to share with our audience as well as learn something myself. So with that being said, there are a lot of resources and organizations, programs out there, right, that are supporting veterans through and military spouses through transition. So how do you set yourself apart? What is your approach? I know it's a little bit different than others that are out there. Of course, there's like 45,000 MSO VSOs out there, but how is Hire Heroes USA different?
Yeah, you nailed it though, Andia. It's at times can feel like a crowded space, right? There's 45,000 different organizations, varying sizes, and with totally different missions, serving veterans, military spouses, military families. And sometimes that gets super segmented. Sometimes that's, hyper specific to an issue. We're really narrowly focused on employment as the primary mission orientation that we have. Our belief and kind of the data shows this as well is that employment's an important cornerstone for overall quality of life. It's like the primary building block that allows you to shape like purpose and your personal mission, but also sustain and support your family, be part of your community, and really it gives everyone that leg up for that next phase of their life and really sets a identity for military service members and military families after service around the value that service brings. And so we stay first super disciplined, focused on just employment as our intervention. We focus on employment coaching. And the way that we do that that's a little bit different is one-on-one, highly personalized for every, military member, veteran, or military spouse that we serve, is they get one-on-one coaching with a full-time staff member on our team. That's very tough to deliver from a process side, and tough to scale. But the reason we do that is two things, really. First, it allows us to ensure the best quality coaching and quality control and integration of what we're learning so that every opportunity is connected and we're really building that full comprehensive understanding to set that person up for their best next phase. And then second, it allows us to prioritize care around those with the biggest barriers or the most need. So there's a ton of competitive systems out there. There's a ton of policy-backed systems and programs that are aligned with, federal infrastructure or other corporate opportunities. Sometimes an unemployed veteran or a homeless veteran might inadvertently be sequenced out of those because they might not fit the ideal, prototype or archetype of a client to go through that. We shift that on its head and focus on presenting the most care and prioritizing need around unemployed, underemployed, out of the labor market, homeless, or service members or military spouses who have those biggest barriers to employment opportunities.
Just a follow-up question. So you are serving veterans, military spouses nationwide,
Yeah,
correct?
we are. We're a national focus system. We do that mostly through a distributed means, meaning kind of our coaching can sometimes be in person, but more often it's on the phone or Google Chat or a Zoom, FaceTime. Text is really popular for some young soldiers as they're leaving. They back and forth texting with their coach nonstop. And we serve in all 50 states as well as international service members and military spouses. So folks stationed overseas or expats who live internationally.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's impressive. You don't see that a lot either. That's pretty unique.
Yeah, especially with, the hyper focus of your mission, as you mentioned. It, that's really impressive to me. And what I'd like to kind of just, quickly, without spoiling what's going to come in a future episode, is, some of the services that you really cater to and work through those barriers to employment. I think of, folks like, hey, I spent my time in the service calling in airstrikes.
Yeah.
What am I good for out in the civilian market, right? And again, I'm not going to pull the thread on that one, because that would spoil, I think, the career spotlight piece that we've got with one of the folks that worked through your program. But if you could kind of unpack a little bit more about the specifics of the services that you work, for the individual, and how the employers, kind of like nest into your organization to be able to really cull the best out of the service members,
Yeah.
and ensure they have a place in civil society.
Yeah. Ian, you kind of hit on that point there, right? Employment is a journey that people have to do individually, but also you've got to find where you fit in that corporate lifestyle. Like, companies can sort of meet you part of the way, but in the end, a company that's selling a certain product or whatever, their bottom line isn't based on trying to meet a departing service member all the way where that service member is. There's got to be some give and take on both sides there. So we kind of really focus our services around who we're serving as well as their timeline to employment, because we'll serve any and all veteran or military spouse at any point in their career journey. So that means sometimes we have an active duty military member who's signing up for help and they have 5 years before they're planning on leaving the service, and they want to sort of give themselves a leg up and think about building their network and building how they talk about their value proposition for plenty of time and get some reps in on interviewing and the rest, which means, that coaching is really rooted on that individual, helping them feel equipped and confident in talking about their skills and values before we get into, really tactically connecting them with employers. Because no employer really wants to have a conversation with someone like, okay, we're hiring for this role right now or in the next 3 months, and you're available in 5 years. That recruiter feels like their time is wasted in that conversation. So how do we help them network and coach effectively around that? Next biggest bucket is those people right in that transition period. And that's for transitioning military members and military spouses. They are job seeking right now. They might not have all the pieces and parts ready, but that looming need of a job is presenting them right in the face. And that is where we really focus on this combination of self-development, understanding and unpacking their skills and how they talk about those skills. If you called in airstrikes all the time, I mean, I'm sure companies would love that. They'd be like, oh yeah, we've got we got a surface air mission or whatever, we got to call in a strike.
Yeah. Well, and even beyond that, and sorry to interrupt you, I mean, I think you hit on something really neat, right? Where you talk about being able to link the individual to the skills they have. And somebody who calls in airstrikes, they are masters of communication. They
Yeah.
are masters of working under pressure. They can meet tight deadlines. I mean, there's all these little niche things, and being able to translate that into the civilian lingo, I think really will help uh, build the confidence,
Yeah.
so, guys like you and I don't walk into something and we're like, wow, how did I get here? There's that imposter syndrome. And I really don't know exactly what I'm doing here. But those are important skills that I know that you guys are really
Exactly.
working on hard. So thanks for flagging that.
Yeah, and taking it a step further too, if you're calling in airstrikes, you're on the ground, you're getting data from a lot of different places, as from the air crews that you're speaking to, from the unit on the ground that you're with, from higher commands and stuff like that. You're getting uh, an airstrike might be called in a set format, but you're having to layer stacks of information on top of each other and think around what the ground, who's where in the air, what direction are they coming in, what's the blowback, and it's like a supercomputer on the ground thinking through all the impacts and effects of that choice that they're going to make, of how they direct an air crew in. Well, to me, like, as you think about all the ways that they're taking disparate information and deciding on an action and direction, I mean, that fits in a lot of industries. That could fit in financial services, or, if you're working at a big bank or an equities desk or something along those lines. Like, you're looking at market movements and trying to dictate a course of action, a choice that you want to
Mhm.
make. It's all these pieces of information. You might not think calling in an airstrike connects to financial services, but the core competencies underneath that could, if that aligns with the direction that the individual wants to go in. And we just really try to help them, I guess, see that linkage, where those skills could be applicable. What do they love to do? What are they uniquely good at? What will the market pay them to do? That's kind of the crux of how an individual has to be ready. And then there's the unique lens of how the heck you actually get hired in today's labor market, which is its own
Sure.
trouble. Um, how do you get a resume across the finish line so that it gets through an applicant tracking system? How do you network effectively with hiring managers and recruiters? How do you, develop your value proposition, interview effectively? How do you leverage and format and structure your skills and capabilities in a way that an employer aligns with, to
Mhm.
take advantage of the different pathways and connection points that they've got? And how are you successful when you step foot in that job? Everything from countering an offer around pay or benefits without kind of upsetting that opportunity, to building your relationships in those first few months on the ground. Kind of, we have coaching and alumni services and things like that around, aligned around all of that. An important part of that is we leverage volunteers as well that are working in industry. If you wanted to go into a technical role, say you were a software engineer and you wanted to go into, um, let's say, video game industry, we have non-military volunteers who work in similar roles across every industry. We set you up with a mock interview with someone that's in that industry or
Hmm.
hires on that role, and it makes a huge difference. Imagine getting a free rep at interviews with someone who thinks like, or is close to thinks like, that the hiring manager you're going to interview with would interview you. It's such a confidence boost. It's such an opportunity and skills boost. So that's a big part of how we develop those individuals, is really kind of walking them through each step of that,
Mhm.
but letting them lead their journey. We're not trying to force fit a service member or a military spouse into an open job out there just to make a number look good. Um, for us, it's more important that they're in the job that they fill that or find that
Mhm.
fulfillment than just kind of make numbers look good on a page.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, where I think it's a concierge service of sorts, where
Yeah.
it's about the right fit, not the right now fit.
Yeah.
And there is a huge distinction with that, where, timing matters, but timing shouldn't be the only driver for, a service member or spouse or whatever, as you transition out of uniform into whatever's next. And I really appreciate you doing that. And I think that kind of really leads to Andia's next question then.
Yeah.
He's trying to set me up, not steal my
I know.
question. um, but yeah, so you did talk about how spouses and veterans, well, veterans and specifically could engage with your program even 5 years out. So what do folks need to know? So thinking
Yeah.
about our audience, the folks that we're reaching with our podcast, what do they need to know about accessing, what is wrong with me today? Accessing your programs and tools, and what advice would you give to a spouse and or a transitioning veteran?
Yeah. So first, I'd say, um, one of the things that an important part of what sets us up, or makes us different in the market, is we are really open around any and all service member and military spouse type. So any rank, any era of service, doesn't matter where you are in your employment journey. If you're unemployed right now, or currently working but curious around what's out there in the labor market, it doesn't matter what your distribution of service was. So honorable discharge, not other than honorable discharge. If you had justice connected incidents, if you're currently homeless or were homeless in the past, we work with any and all,
That's
along
awesome.
with
Yeah,
updating.
I think we need to put an exclamation point on that. I have met with and engaged with a lot of different VSOs out there, and I really am impressed that that is not a non-starter for you. Like the fact that you do engage with all of those folks. So thank you for
Yeah,
doing that. I think
definitely to be
that's really
celebrated.
important. Yeah.
I
Okay,
think
keep going.
on the military spouse side too, right? Like it's, there's a lot of different ways. Even the term military spouse can carry Sometimes folks have a perception around that they mean only spouses of active duty military members or reserve or guard members on an activated status. But what about a veteran spouse? Or when did you meet your spouse? Did you meet them when they were before they joined the service, while they were in the service, after the service? For us, like all those things absolutely make a difference in terms of maybe that spouse and partner's understanding of each other and of like navigating the DoD or like big army is very different than collaborating with the VA and navigating benefits after service. One might help with skills, but but to us, it doesn't, they're not barriers to access for the services. So if you met your partner when you're in high school at state, and then you got married, and then they joined the service, but then maybe you separated, all of that changed your career trajectory. In the same way that if you met your partner as they were when they were already a veteran, and now you're maybe don't have that military community connection, but you're trying to support your partner with access to the VA or navigating veterans related issues, you still need help from a community that understands that and uplifts that and helps with your career journey, because those will affect career journey. One helping their partner navigate with the VA has seen like it can be a time crunch. It can affect your career.
True story.
So we have a
Definitely.
very broad around that to say, any spouses of military veterans, regardless if they're even still with that partner, that affected their career journey, and they're qualified for our services because of that.
Oh, that's incredible.
To access though, like one is go to the website, sign up, and then we kind of route you in that, but then also paying attention to when we have different events. So our core offering is that one-on-one coaching. That's the major muscle movement for us. But sometimes folks want to dip their toe in the water a little bit. They might say like, I don't know, I want to just kind of listen to a couple webinars, or this company is doing a presentation on their hiring practices, and I'd like to just kind of sign up just to listen to that. We have a ton of options that are open to all community members, even if they're not going in our one-on-one coaching. Things like virtual career fairs where we're connecting you with employers. We have a job board that's also focused on military hiring and things like that. And webinars, light events, things like that. Some are focused on active clients, meaning they're in the one-on-one coaching, and so they're boosters. Others are open to the entire community. So going through our events list on the page and signing up for things that pique your interest could be a great way to dip your toe in the market and figure out what's next. I encourage everyone to sign up for the one-on-one coaching, because that is really the big difference maker, I think, for anyone's employment journey.
Mm.
Okay, and what's the website? Because I don't think we've even said it yet.
Oh, yeah, sorry. It's www.hireheroesusa.org, or on
Perfect. And we, of course, put it in the show notes.
Yeah. Yeah, if you go to any of those, Hire Heroes USA, we're that one. Or HHUSA sometimes is what people use as the shorthand. Hire Heroes USA is the website.
Nice. And we'll make sure, again, as Andia said, to hit those in the show notes. So go out there, please, for the listeners, viewers, whatever platform you're on, hit those websites up, follow Ross, find him, and, we'll get you in touch, because, you've just opened up, I think, in a really incredible world with a very unique kind of perspective on that really opens doors for, I think, others who otherwise don't think that those doors are even open anymore. Yeah. So this is really, I think, highlighted for those folks in particular, and what an incredible service that you guys offer out there. As we kind of get through the formal part, is there anything else that we didn't highlight that you want to quick plug in before we kind of get into the fun stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say,
not that this isn't fun.
The last thing I'd say, I guess, is just like everyone's career journey looks really different, especially in the current labor market. And so we're seeing some interesting trends of kind of people returning to the labor market. Maybe they thought their nest egg would last a little bit longer, and so they're kind of coming back in and reskilling or enhancing their skills around the current economy, and just kind of flagging for everyone that right now, like it's the job search process for everyone out there, new graduates, people getting their masters from Ivy League institutions, transitioning military members, any job seekers. It's taking longer than people were used to for the last 5 or 10 years. For some groups, it's taking almost double that of what we've seen for, and we have 20 years of data on it. We've been doing this work for 20 years. And how long people at the job search is taking a lot longer right now. No one really knows why. Some of that could be slow hiring. Some of that could be just not a lot of new rule expansion. Some of that could be a lot of overuse of AI on both sides of the kind of hiring equation. AI resumes meeting AI screening, and it's just kind of like two robots talking to each other. You got to keep the human in the loop. So reach out, talk to recruiters, talk to hiring managers directly, build your network. But I just kind of recommend to everyone, like, what you think that the hiring market will look like, it might take longer. So sign up earlier, sign up in advance, and keep others in mind as you're going through that. Like, everyone thinks about network development right at that moment that they're job searching, but your network really comes from building intentional relationships at every stage. So if you're satisfied in your work right now, loving your job, don't forget to keep building that network, and being part of being a great network person is connecting others to resources and support they might need. That's going to pay dividends for you on that point when you do need to access your job search. So just keeping that pressure on of relationships, stewardship, and networking, even if you're in a comfortable spot right now.
Oh yeah, fantastic points. Really appreciate that, Ross. So you heard it here, folks. Sign up early. Stuff is taking longer. And don't forget about the network, because the network, much like me, it got me into where I'm at currently. I definitely want to make sure I pay it forward. So really appreciate that advice, Ross. That's a great way to kind of have that perspective and good words to live by.
And I do think it's important, and we've talked this on other podcasts as well, is that for folks to know they're not alone, right? If you're going through this, like, it is a normal process. You're not alone. And I think that's one way that, the one-on-one coaching is so tremendously helpful, because I do think that isolating feeling of like, God, am I the only one going through this? Am I the only one that, is not finding a job like as quickly as everyone told me I was going to? And I think that's a myth. And that's something that we really need to remind people of, is that, you're not alone, and you've
feel
got,
like it for sure.
And you've got resources and coaches out there, right, to help you. So, I always want people to remember that, like, you're not alone here.
Yeah, good words.
We're all doing this together. So, okay, well, with that, I'm going to transition us to a fun little thing we call "What's in Your Rucksack." So, this is where we think about a metaphorical item that,
or real.
I mean, honestly, was something that you would bring with you from military service into your civilian life. And then, of course, one thing you would leave behind. Check it out of that rucksack.
Okay. So I thought a lot about this, and I think the item that I would bring forward with me is like my knee board checklist. So in our aviation community, really any aviation community, you have this kind of Velcro strapped to your leg knee board, and it's got on it your checklist items for all the core aspects of, your walk around, starting the aircraft, emergency procedures, things like that. It's got your mission packet list. It's got everything that you need kind of summarized in a simple, easy presentation view for you to manage that mission and the systems of the flight. That's, I think I was so used to that for a long time that, like, I've tried a lot of different ways of replicating a knee board checklist, and I'm probably just going to go dig it out of a trunk in my basement and like restrap this thing to my leg every day at work. Of just like, here's my task list, here's what's going on. How do I keep my
I do love that. I am a list maker. I feel you.
Leaving behind, you know what? It's the one quart canteen from the Army that, sat on your hips in the old Alice gear. If everyone wonders, like, how old am I and what kind of, I had the 2 1-quart canteens on the web belt, and then the 2-quart canteen slung across the chest, kind of. That's how old I am.
Yeah, I remember those. They were not comfy.
Oh, and
predates Camelback.
The smell of them are so bad. And why was the Army still using them for so long? The swamp water canteens. There's so many better ways to consume water. So that for me is like the absolute item I wish I could purge from my memory is the smell of a 1 quart canteen.
Yeah.
I love that. So it was a real item.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was a real item that had such a tremendous mental impact on you that you could smell it right now, I bet. If this had smell-o-vision,
Yes.
you too could smell this because I
Oh,
know
for sure.
exactly what you're talking about, Ross. Awesome.
I love that.
All right, cool. So now we're going to hit up our other fun thing. We call it Two Truths and a Lie, military style, where we're going to give you the opportunity to guess which was the lie from our previous guest. So our previous guest was Kate Horrell, and she has a wonderful book that talks specifically about using post 9/11 GI Bill benefits. So link up to that episode, episode 20. And here are her her three pieces of information, the two truths and the one lie. And you get to pick, Ross. So first up, Kate says that one, she didn't start drinking coffee until she was well into her 50s, and now she has a pretty hefty coffee habit. Two, she was the prom queen. And three, she was raised by a Marine Corps vet who is currently 103 years old. Which one is the lie?
That's really well done. So I'm going to go with the coffee one because that just seems like 50 is late to then suddenly pick up coffee, I think. I mean, 30, I'd have believed, but I'm going to go with the coffee one.
Actually, she was never prom queen. She started, and yeah, we couldn't believe it either. I thought I was late and I was in my mid 20s. But yeah, interestingly enough, she started her coffee habit well into her 50s. So good stuff. All right. So
That's good
Ross, over to you. What are your three facts? And we will reveal on the next episode, episode 22, which one is your lie. Good, sir. Over to you.
Okay. Let's see. So first fact, as a cadet at West Point, I got in so much trouble that the Chief of Staff of the Army, General Shinseki, knew the details about my troublemaking. I was the honor graduate of my flight school class at Fort Rucker, Alabama. And last fact is during the surge, I was kicked off a golf course in the green zone of Baghdad by Air Force personnel for not having the proper attire.
Huh. Interesting.
Dang.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Well, we'll guess after we get off the recording and we'll see which one it is and we'll reveal it again on the next episode. So, Ross, thank you so very much for joining us. For those folks, again, out there listening and watching, please hit up Hire Heroes USA. Check out their services early, check them out often, and see what they can do for you.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks.
Awesome.
Andia.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it, Ross. And I think, excuse me, I think, not only check things out early, but at any time, right? Because I think that was one of the lessons we learned from you today too. So we appreciate you being here. For folks out there listening and watching, please check us out. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. You can also listen to us on Spotify and Audible and Apple Podcasts. And Amazon.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
The Amazon one.
Always forget one.
And of course, hit the website,
yes.
thenexttourpodcast.com. All right.
Thanks,
so everybody.
The views, opinions, and advice expressed by our guest on the next tour are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the podcast, Ian, Andia, or any affiliated organizations. While we strive to provide helpful and accurate information, this podcast is for informational purposes only. We encourage listeners to consult with professionals or conduct their own research before making any significant decisions related to military transition or post-service life. The content is intended as guidance and personal perspective, not as official advice.